All right, so today we're diving into something pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah.
The decision to have kids or not.
Big one.
Yeah. And we're looking at this Reddit thread, and someone's really struggling with this.
Hmm.
They're getting a lot of pressure to have kids, even though they just don't want them.
It's interesting how much other people feel like they can weigh in on this.
I know, right?
Such a personal choice.
It is. It's huge, and there's so much to consider.
Definitely a lot of factors.
Yeah, societal pressures, cultural expectations.
Totally.
Like, in this thread, the person who started it, they're 30.
Okay.
And they're already getting all this pressure,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking for advice from other people who have chosen not to have kids.
Makes sense. Looking for some support.
Yeah. And they even mentioned that their grandmother told them they should have kids just to see what it's like.
Wow.
Like it's some kind of
Like a theme park or something.
like a ride you have to go on
Exactly. You have to do this.
just to see what it's like.
But it's so interesting, though, how the original poster here, they seem to have already seen what it's like.
Right.
Like they've seen enough.
And decided, no thank you.
Yeah, heart pez.
Exactly. And then right away, there's this comment from someone who's 40.
Okay. A little older.
Yeah. And they've always said not yet to kids.
Not yet.
But now they're kind of wondering, what if they had?
That's so relatable.
I know. Like
Yeah.
that feeling of
What could have been?
the path not taken.
You can't A/B test life.
I know. It's both fascinating and kind of frustrating.
Totally. Like we're all just making decisions with incomplete information.
Just hoping for the best.
Exactly. And our priorities and values can totally shift over time.
Oh, speaking of,
Yeah.
there's this comment from a couple who are teachers,
Okay, interesting.
and they decided not to have kids after actually experiencing childcare firsthand.
I mean, makes sense.
Yeah.
You see it every day.
They're like, no, no, no.
Yeah. I can see how that would solidify your decision.
Absolutely.
Seeing it day in and day out.
And they seem totally content with that choice.
Yeah, good for them.
Then there's this comment from someone who's 66.
Wow, so they've seen a lot of life.
Right. They have zero regrets about not having kids.
That's interesting.
It's really cool to see that perspective.
Like they're thriving, enjoying their freedom.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that you can be content and fulfilled without having children.
Totally.
And especially for those who worry about being lonely in old age.
Big concern for a lot of people.
This comment kind of shows that you can have a long and happy life without kids.
Absolutely.
Okay, but now's where it gets really interesting.
Oh.
A whole discussion breaks out about loneliness and lack of support later in life
Yeah.
if you don't have kids.
That's a big one.
It is, but it's like this fear of loneliness almost reveals a societal blind spot
Yeah,
because we haven't really created good support systems for aging people in general.
that's true regardless of whether they have family or not.
Right. So it's not just about having kids or not. It's a systemic issue.
Definitely a bigger picture thing.
And someone who worked in a nursing home chimed in and said that they saw parents who never got visits from their kids,
Wow.
but also residents who had great support networks without ever having children.
That's such a good point.
It really challenges that assumption.
It does, because having kids doesn't automatically guarantee support later in life.
Exactly. And not having kids doesn't automatically mean you'll be lonely.
It's about building those relationships throughout your life.
Yeah, friends, chosen family, community connections.
Those are the things that really sustain us.
Now, to bring in another perspective,
Okay.
there's this comment from someone who actually regrets not having more children.
Oh, wow. So the other side of the coin.
They talk about missing out on the joys of parenthood.
That's powerful.
It really shows that there are fulfilling aspects to parenthood that some people might miss if they choose not to have kids.
It's about knowing yourself, right? Your own values and what you really want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this person, they actually suggest fostering children,
Oh, interesting.
maybe even with the intention of adopting.
Okay, that adds another layer.
It does, because then a whole debate starts about the ethics of fostering with that goal in mind.
Yeah. Is that fair to the children?
Right. Like, should the focus be on providing a temporary home for a child in need?
And not necessarily on trying to adopt them.
It's a complex issue.
For sure.
And then this idea of regret pops up again in another thread.
Mm-hmm.
People are arguing that even if you have kids, it doesn't guarantee you'll have support in old age
True. Relationships can change.
because estrangement is on the rise.
And there's no guarantee your kids will be there for you later, even if you have a great relationship now.
I think that's a good point to acknowledge.
It is.
Family dynamics are complicated.
Yeah, and things change over time.
But I do think societal expectations around having children have shifted.
Oh, definitely.
It used to be like this automatic next step.
Get married, have kids, that's it.
Yeah, but now there's more room for choice.
And for being intentional about it.
Hopefully that means fewer people are having kids for the wrong reasons.
Like, just to avoid being lonely later.
Which honestly
Would be considered kind of selfish, right?
Whoa, I hadn't thought about it like that.
Yeah, if you're bringing a life into the world just for your own benefit,
That raises a lot of questions.
it does.
And speaking of societal judgments,
Yeah.
there's this comment about how child-free people are often seen as selfish,
It's such a stereotype.
especially by older generations.
Right. Like, they just don't get it.
But it's a personal decision.
It is. And it's often based on wanting a fulfilling life on your own terms.
Okay, one last comment before we wrap up part 1 of this deep dive.
All right, hit me.
It questions whether younger people, like those in their 30s and 40s,
Okay.
can really say they have no regrets about being child-free.
Interesting.
Like they haven't lived long enough yet to experience the potential challenges of aging without children.
It's a good point.
It is.
Because our perspectives can change as we get older.
Totally. What we value in our 30s might not be the same in our 60s or 70s.
Right, and that's okay.
Life is all about evolving and changing.
Absolutely.
So let's pause here for now.
Sounds good.
We'll be back with part 2, where we'll keep going with this conversation about the child-free choice.
Looking forward to it.
If you're enjoying this, be sure to subscribe to Voices of the Soul.
Yeah, check it out.
And you can find more of our content on Shauna Pelage's YouTube channel.
Awesome.
We'll see you in part 2.
See ya then. You know, it's amazing how much this whole conversation is about time.
It really is.
How our perspectives change as we get older and the impact of our choices in the long run.
And like realizing there's no right time for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's different.
And this thread is like a time capsule almost
Know that.
of all these different life stages
Yeah.
and all the unique challenges and joys that come with each one.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's this comment that talks about how much emphasis we put on those early stages of parenthood.
The baby and toddler years.
Yeah, even though those are just a tiny part of the whole journey.
Right. Like we see all these cute baby pictures and videos.
And then everyone warns you about the terrible twos.
But what about everything that comes after that?
Exactly. What about the teenage years?
College tuition.
Supporting your adult children.
It's a lifelong commitment.
It really is. Those early years are intense, but they're just the beginning.
Yeah, it's not just about raising a child.
It's about supporting them through their whole life.
And someone else mentioned how they felt like they were losing those different versions of their child as they grew up.
Oh, wow.
Like you have the baby, the toddler, the little kid.
And then suddenly they're teenagers.
And you're like, wait, where did my baby go?
It's bittersweet for sure.
There's that nostalgia,
But also pride.
seeing them become their own person.
It's amazing to witness.
And then, of course, there's this whole question of regret.
Yeah, that comes up a lot.
Will you regret not having kids?
Or regret having them.
It's such a tough one.
We can't see the future, right?
Yep.
We just have to make the best choice we can with what we know.
And be open to the possibility that our feelings might change later on.
Absolutely.
One commenter said they'd rather regret not having children than regret having them.
That's a strong statement.
It is. It shows how much weight this decision carries.
It's a fear of making the wrong choice.
And that feeling is probably amplified when it comes to bringing a life into the world.
I could see that.
But every choice has its challenges and rewards.
That's true. There's no escape in the complexity of life.
And on a positive note, there are so many comments from people who are happily child-free
Yes. Love to see it.
in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s.
Wow. A wide range.
They're thanking their past selves for making that choice.
They're embracing the freedom and flexibility it's given them.
It's inspiring.
It really is. It challenges that traditional idea that you need kids to
Listen-
be happy.
And it's encouraging to see people finding joy and purpose in their own way.
Absolutely.
But of course, there are some dissenting voices.
Oh, yeah, there always are.
Some people think that those in their 30s and 40s are too young to say they have no regrets.
Interesting.
Like they haven't lived long enough to really know what they might be missing.
That's a valid point. Time can definitely change things.
It can, but it's also important to respect the choices people are making now.
Based on what they need and value right now,
Yeah, we can't assume to know what's best for them.
or predict how they'll feel in the future.
And it's fascinating how societal expectations around having children have shifted.
Oh, yeah, it's not like it used to be.
It used to be just assumed,
Grow up, get married, have kids, the end.
but now there's more room for choice and intention.
People are thinking about it more carefully.
And speaking of things to think carefully about,
What's that?
Someone brought up the cost of raising kids.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Huge financial investment.
From diapers to childcare to college,
It all adds up.
it's definitely something to consider.
And then there's this really insightful comment from a hospice worker.
Okay.
They've seen firsthand that having children doesn't guarantee you won't be alone at the end of your life.
That's a sobering thought.
It reminds us that our support system shouldn't rely solely on our children.
We need friends, chosen family, community
All of that.
to feel truly supported.
Okay, one final comment before we move on to part 3.
All right, let's hear it.
This one highlights the issue of estrangement.
That's tough.
It seems more and more people are going no contact with their parents these days.
It's a painful situation for everyone involved,
It is, but sometimes distance is necessary.
even though it's hard.
It's about protecting yourself and your well-being.
Absolutely.
Okay, welcome back to part 3 of this deep dive on being child-free.
Yeah.
You know, going through all these comments, it just hits me how honest and open people are being.
It's powerful.
It really shows how much this decision weighs on people.
It does. It's not just a preference.
It's about societal expectations, family pressure.
and how we see ourselves, how our identity evolves.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is just how many different experiences and viewpoints there are.
Oh, yeah. So many different paths.
We've got people who always knew they didn't want kids. People who figured it out later.
And some who are still unsure.
It's not just one child-free story, right?
Absolutely. People get there for all sorts of reasons.
Like one person talked about always loving kids, but being terrified of pregnancy and childbirth.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's a huge thing.
It's physically and emotionally demanding.
And honestly, it's often romanticized.
It's not always glowing skin and happy moments.
No, it can be tough, painful even.
And then there's the emotional side, being responsible for another human being.
247 for years.
That's a big commitment.
one that not everyone wants or is ready for.
And some people are talking about how the world right now is making them rethink having children.
Yeah, the climate crisis, the economy, everything going on.
It's a lot to bring a child into.
It's a heavy question, for sure.
Shows a real sense of responsibility, I think.
Yeah, caring about the future.
And then there are comments from people who have dealt with infertility or miscarriages.
Oh, that's so tough.
It's heartbreaking. Not everyone who wants children can have them.
It's a really painful experience.
And often people don't talk about it enough,
Yeah, there's a lot of silence around it.
which can make it even harder.
Like people telling you to just move on or try again.
When that's not always possible or what you need.
Exactly.
And there's a comment from someone who chose to adopt
Oh, wow.
instead of having biological children,
That's beautiful.
wanting to give a loving home to a child in need.
Says a lot about their heart,
It does.
their compassion.
Okay, but then things get a little heated
Oh,
in a thread about being child-free by choice
okay.
versus just not having children because of circumstances.
I see.
Some people feel like only those who made a conscious decision can use that label.
It's interesting how language and labels become so important,
They do?
especially with identity and choice.
But I think whether it's by choice or circumstance,
Everyone's experience is valid.
exactly, it's not about gatekeeping the label.
It's about respecting different paths.
All right, one final comment.
Okay, last one.
It points out that no matter what you choose, kids or no kids, there will always be those what-ifs.
That's
There's
true.
moments of wondering, what if I had done things differently?
That's part of life, right?
It is, with any big decision.
We're always making choices that shape our lives.
That's also a reminder that there's no one right answer.
Yeah, every journey is unique.
The key is to make choices that feel right for you.
And embrace the path you're on.
That's a great way to wrap up this conversation.
It has been really insightful.
Exploring all these different views on a topic that can be so personal and even taboo. And I think the biggest takeaway is there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to having children.
No, right or wrong.
It's a deeply personal choice. And what matters most is that we respect each other's decisions.
And support each other.
Exactly. We're all on our own journeys.
That's the beauty of it.
Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to Voices of the Soul and check out Shauna Pelage's YouTube channel for more conversations like this. Until next time, keep those conversations flowing.
Keep exploring.